My younger brother, Ethan, has always held a deep grudge against me. If you think it was rooted in envy, you'd be mistaken. He was the cherished child in our family, not me. There was no reason for him to feel jealous. To provide some background, our mother always doted on Ethan. He was the apple of her eye, the golden boy. She prepared his meals, washed his clothes, and even expected me to assist him with his homework. I was supposed to help him simply because we were brothers, yet I never received the same care. I accepted this dynamic, being naturally self-reliant. Perhaps I was partly to blame for always catering to his needs without expecting reciprocity. Ethan never supported me when I needed him, and only came to me when he wanted something. While I was a reserved, studious kid who preferred solitude, Ethan was boisterous and aggressive, much like our father. I'm also very direct and truthful, never softening my words. I suspect my bluntness may have led our mother to view me negatively. This favoritism made Ethan the family's darling, and I didn't mind too much growing up. But trouble started when he began tormenting and ridiculing me for being different. He mocked my appearance, teasing me about my height and glasses. He'd sneak into my room, read my journal, and then tattle to our mom about its contents. When I confronted him or complained to our parents about his invasion of privacy, they brushed it off, saying it was harmless sibling behavior. Ethan did worse things, like nearly breaking my glasses or slipping disgusting items into my meals. Once, he hid small pebbles in my cereal, but thankfully, I noticed before they could harm my teeth. When I told our mom, she dismissed it, claiming that's just how brothers bond. During our arguments, Ethan targeted my vulnerabilities with cruel insults. We attended the same school, and he knew I was being picked on by some kids. Instead of defending me, he joined the bullies, hurling names like pathetic geek or awkward freak and egging them on to physically hurt me, calling me a total failure. Once, during a petty dispute I can barely recall, he told me to end my life. While I could shrug off most of his taunts, that one cut deeply because I was grappling with mental health struggles at the time. I'm in a better place now, but hearing my brother wish me dead was crushing. Since our dad was often busy with work and our mom didn't seem to care, she even blamed me once, saying I provoked Ethan. Things escalated over time. In high school, Ethan tried to set my hair on fire, and shockingly, our mother excused it as playful behavior. Who does that? Fortunately, my dad eventually stepped in, recognizing the severity of the situation. He even threatened to involve the police. This was a wake-up call for Ethan, who had never faced consequences before. He was visibly shaken, and Dad made it clear that he needed to respect me. Later, Dad visited my room for a heart-to-heart. I never expected his support because he often remarked on how alike he and Ethan were, which was true. Dad admitted he'd hoped Ethan would outgrow his behavior, but he was starting to see him as a bully. Hearing this validation from my father nearly brought me to tears. I poured out everything Ethan had done to me over the years, including the school bullying. Dad was stunned by how much I'd endured. The next day, he spoke to the school principal to ensure the bullies faced serious consequences if they continued. That evening, he enrolled me in MMA classes at a local gym, urging me to toughen up and stand up to those who targeted me. As a nerdy kid, the idea of me learning to fight might have seemed absurd, but I was determined. I balanced my studies and training diligently, and MMA transformed my life and physique. One day, Ethan was at it again. He stole my chore money, which I'd been saving diligently. I caught him as he was about to ride off with his friends. I demanded he return it, but he taunted me, saying I'd just run to Dad for help. Something snapped in me, and I punched him in the face. Ethan was shocked, stumbled backward, and I retrieved my money from his pocket before pushing him down again. He started crying loudly, which was almost humorous. Our mother rushed out to comfort him and scolded me for fighting, saying I should be a better example for Ethan, who seemed to relish my reprimand. She complained to Dad about my actions, insisting I needed discipline. Dad calmly asked us both to explain. I recounted how Ethan stole my hard-earned money, while Ethan claimed he needed it for a date and that I should have helped him as his brother. Dad, however, told Ethan he was lucky I only hit him, as anyone else might have called the police for theft. He emphasized that Ethan had no right to take what wasn't his. Ethan threw a tantrum, likely expecting our mother to defend him, but Dad stood firm. When Ethan realized he wouldn't be punished for being hit, he screamed that he hated me and locked himself in his room. After that, Ethan started keeping his distance. He finally understood he couldn't physically intimidate me anymore, and even Dad had stopped enabling him. For the first time, I felt we were on equal footing. Though he couldn't harm me physically, he resorted to sly verbal jabs when our parents weren't around. As he grew older, Ethan's anger and temper worsened. When I tried to ask him something, he'd ignore me, muttering insults like dork or failure under his breath. If he needed to tell me something, he'd go through our mother instead of speaking to me directly. When I asked her why Ethan couldn't just talk to me, she'd urge me to be more patient. I couldn't tell if it was puberty or pure hatred. Over time, his constant remarks became unbearable, and I yearned to leave home to escape him. I repeatedly asked our mother to facilitate a conversation to resolve our issues, but she always declined, saying she didn't want to interfere. When I asked why Ethan treated me this way, she dodged the question. Eventually, I earned a scholarship to my dream university and left home. Dad threw a celebration for me, and even Mom seemed proud. Ethan, however, remained distant, barely acknowledging my success. Leaving for university felt like a mix of excitement for my future and relief from the toxic environment at home. My first few months at university were freeing. I made friends, enjoyed my studies, and began building a life away from Ethan's constant verbal attacks. The weight of his cruelty lifted, bringing me peace. In my second year, I met my wife Lisa at a campus party through a mutual friend, and we hit it off instantly. Coming from a religious family, having children outside marriage was frowned upon. When we learned Lisa was pregnant in our final year, we decided to marry after graduation. Our wedding was a small, joyful event. Our parents were thrilled, and we cherished the moment. I truly believed Lisa was my soulmate. I always pictured a lifelong, monogamous relationship with one woman to share my life with. Despite interest from other women over the years, I never strayed because I was genuinely happy with Lisa. She was my ideal partner, and I never wanted to hurt her. But later, I discovered 2 instances of her infidelity. One was a sporadic affair with a married colleague that lasted years, and the other was a brief fling with an ex during a family visit. Some might call me naive, and in hindsight, I can't entirely disagree. Each time, we separated briefly, but I chose to forgive her. I didn't want our child raised in a broken home and believed we could work through it. The affair with her colleague happened when we were younger, and I chalked it up to immaturity. For a while, things improved. Though I struggled to fully trust her again, I tried to move forward, knowing forgiveness required effort. It's been 4 years since her second betrayal, and I felt confident in giving her another chance. Lisa seemed to have changed, and we were happily planning our family's future. But 3 months ago, my world collapsed when Lisa confessed to a long-term affair and hinted that our son might not be mine. Her words hit like a freight train. Shock, betrayal, and disbelief overwhelmed me as I tried to process her revelation. In a haze, I asked why she kept such a devastating secret and how she could do this to me. Her response was cold, detached, as if she were unaffected by the pain she caused. Her vague answers only deepened my confusion. It was a gut-wrenching moment, facing the shattered trust and uncertainty about my own family. I pressed Lisa for the truth, feeling I deserved to know who the father of the child I'd raised was. She finally admitted it was Ethan. My jaw dropped as I asked what she meant. She explained that she and Ethan became friends when I introduced her to my family, and she stayed with us from Thanksgiving to New Year's. Ethan, usually cold toward me, was kind and courteous to her, which pleased me because I wanted Lisa to feel welcomed. Lisa wanted to fit into my family, so she spent time with my mom whenever possible. She noticed the tension between Ethan and me and asked about it. I shared our strained history, explaining that reconciliation seemed unlikely due to his unresolved feelings. Lisa began including Ethan in our outings, hoping to help us reconnect. When we planned movie nights, she invited him and we watched his choices. Ethan and I exchanged a few words, a slight improvement from his usual silence. I recall Lisa and Ethan playing video games together, but I didn't think much of it. Lisa later revealed that Ethan confided in her about his struggles and a recent breakup. Feeling vulnerable, he formed a bond with her. She admitted he flirted with her when I wasn't around, and things eventually spiraled out of control. The thought of my wife and brother being intimate made me nauseous. Lisa said she felt guilty afterward and cut contact with him, which aligned with her sudden decision to leave before New Year's. Though I urged her to stay, she insisted on going home. When we reunited at college after the holidays, she seemed her usual cheerful self, so I didn't suspect anything. 2 weeks later, we learned she was pregnant. Lisa confessed she wasn't sure if the child was mine or Ethan's, and with no way to confirm, she chose to stay with me, believing I was the more reliable brother. That's why we married. My world felt like it was crumbling. The son I adored might not be mine. I asked if she'd been with Ethan recently, and she nodded slowly. She admitted they'd stayed in touch because their connection was undeniable. They'd sneak off to hotels, lying about working late. She confessed that many of her business trips were actually romantic escapes with him. I asked why she married me if she wanted Ethan. She said she didn't want to end our marriage, saw me as a great father, and chose to stay. She admitted her mistake but didn't know how to stop. I told her I appreciated her honesty but was leaving. She cried, begging for forgiveness, expecting me to lash out. Instead, I calmly packed my bags. Lisa argued that if I loved her, I should fight for our marriage, saying mistakes happen in every relationship. When she saw I wouldn't budge, she claimed our son would suffer in a divorce, insisting kids shouldn't grow up in broken homes. I reminded her that I might not be his father, which made her cry harder and accuse me of cruelty. It seemed she thought nothing could make me leave. Perhaps I was partly to blame for letting her past betrayals slide. While I loved her, that love stemmed from believing we had a son together and our shared history since college. Lisa insisted it wasn't too late to fix things, but I couldn't trust her anymore. Her words felt empty. Even if I forgave her, I could never erase the fact that she slept with my brother. I believe in forgiving human errors, but this crossed an unforgivable line. I left her crying at the door and checked into a hotel. The next day, I went to my parents and told them about Lisa's affair with Ethan, revealing their years-long secret relationship. Their shock was palpable. True to form, my mother initially defended Ethan, insisting her precious son could never betray his brother. Determined to prove the truth, I asked them to stay silent while I called Ethan in their presence, making him think it was a private call. When Ethan answered, I confronted him about the affair. He denied it at first, refusing to take responsibility. But when I said Lisa had confessed everything, he blamed her, calling her untrustworthy. He boasted that women were drawn to him and that he was the more attractive brother. I warned him I'd expose him to everyone. He mocked me, saying no one would believe me because he was the favored child. I laughed at his arrogance, thanking him for admitting the truth, knowing our parents had heard every word. Ethan went silent, then stammered, trying to backtrack and save face. My mother, still reeling, demanded answers from him. He stumbled through a weak defense, blaming everyone but himself, especially Lisa. I saw my mother, once fiercely protective of Ethan, now grappling with disappointment and anger. In that moment, I felt a strange sense of triumph. For years, I'd endured Ethan's torment, and now his true character was exposed. The tables had turned. As Ethan's excuses faltered, my father, usually reserved, couldn't hide his disgust. He asked me to hand him the phone and addressed Ethan. "Ethan," he began, his voice heavy with disappointment. "What you've done isn't just a betrayal of your brother, but of our entire family. You slept with his wife and continued the affair after their marriage. Your actions have consequences and have destroyed the trust we had in you. I raised you and your brother to value family, loyalty, and respect. What you've done spits in the face of those values." He paused, letting his words sink in. "Your disregard for your brother's feelings and disrespect for his marriage are unacceptable. You've not only hurt him but fractured our family's bonds. Your mother and I bear some responsibility for how you've turned out, but we won't tolerate this anymore. From today, your college fund is cut off. You'll pay your university fees yourself. I'm also stopping all financial support for your lifestyle. Do you think sleeping with married women makes you a man? Let's see how you fare without my money." I stayed calm, though I initially wanted to scream at Ethan. Watching Dad hold him accountable felt like ultimate vindication. Ethan underestimated the consequences, and I'd revealed his true nature. My mother, despite Ethan's protests, tried to defend him, but Dad ended the call, cutting off Ethan's attempts to justify himself. "I never mention Ethan to my parents, and they don't bring him up either. For those asking, I'm doing well. I got a promotion at work 2 months ago, boosting my salary significantly. I haven't started dating as I need time to heal. I'm attending therapy, and I'm hopeful about its benefits. Thank you for following my story. If you haven't subscribed, please do and hit the notification bell for more real-life stories."